Mass Effect 2 is a game that got a lot of DLC, and it was a varied bunch. Some of the DLC was phenomenal, some was mediocre, but one item stands out as the absolute laziest and least thought out DLC of the bunch: Arrival. But pick, I hear you say. How can a DLC with a long story-heavy mission be lazier than some costumes or vehicle levels? You see, those costumes were always meant to just be costumes. They were never said to be anything more. And Firewalker was mediocre, sure, but they designed an entire new vehicle with giant levels for it to traverse. And more importantly, it wasn't riddled with plot holes. Arrival, on the other hand, makes no goddamn sense. And it's obvious that these plot holes are because of an absolute lack of care put into the DLC. And nothing makes the shameless laziness more clear than the Batarian helmets. In Mass Effect, Batarians are a four-eyed race that heavily look down upon those with less eyes than them. In fact, having less than 4 eyes is something that they believe directly corresponds to lower intelligence, and they're not scared to tell you that they think you're an idiot. They are an obscenely prideful people, constantly asserting themselves as better whenever they get half a chance. They hold their four-eyed status so close to heart that Batarian religious belief says that the soul leaves through the eyes, and despite this, the helmets they wear in Arrival are completely unchanged generic human helmets, the same ones that humans wear in the very next mission of this DLC. I could see the justification in reusing a helmet if they just don't think making a new model is worth it, but they didn't even pick a fitting existing model. They didn't look at the helmet options and pick one that would fit the best, they just took the generic armored human model and recolored it slightly. Seriously, look at these fucking helmets! First off, they clearly aren't built for Batarian head shapes. Second, the eyes on the helmet do not properly align with any of their eyes, and even if they did align, the helmet still only has 2! Even if the helmets were a perfect fit that they could reasonably see out of, the absolute arrogant bastards that Batarians are would never in a million years use helmets for their military that leave them looking as if they only have 2 eyes. The reason I'm putting so much emphasis on something as simple as their helmets is because it's pretty much a massive flashing neon sign that says "We do not give a shit." The fact that there was such a blatantly half-assed approach to the enemy models shows that they cared more about making sure it was out the door in time rather than making sure it was a good piece of content. And so with it now clear just how half-assed this DLC was, let's dissect those plot holes. Now, the basic hook of the DLC does actually make a good amount of sense. You need to rescue Dr. Kenson from a military base on a Batarian colony world. This is something done at the request of Admiral Hackett. Considering that Hackett's favorite pastime in Mass Effect 1 was calling up Shepard and asking them to do him random favors, this is very in character. The Normandy is also the perfect choice for this mission. Because it's the stealthiest ship in the galaxy, it's way less likely to be caught by the Batarians, and even if it is, it's flying the colors of the human supremacy group Cerberus. This means the Alliance can theoretically wash their hands of the mission if it goes poorly and Shepard gets caught. But whatever points it gains for a genuinely well thought out hook, it then loses for the baffling placement of the mission acquisition in the main game. Arrival is supposed to bridge the gap between Mass Effect 2 and 3. It's basically designed to be the final content you play before importing your save. It was the last DLC released for the game. However, instead of getting the mission in the end or post-game, Hackett contacts you pretty damn early, right after Horizon. And it's not some email you can easily ignore to come back to later. It's a voice message that plays automatically the second you interact with your message terminal that then forces you into a video chat with Hackett. This means you just need to awkwardly put it off if you want to play it when it best fits. This absolutely kills immersion, especially when the entire thing is supposed to be time critical. And this is a game that has an instance of brutally punishing you for putting off a time critical mission. But this time it's fine? Anyways, once you start, you get there and make your way through the military base. It's fine. The whole place feels kinda generic, especially since they don't even look like Batarians, but it's a colony and colonies would use prefabs, so whatever. As for gameplay, again, it's fine. The optional stealth is a fun enough gimmick. I'd say it's pretty solid overall until you get to Amanda Kenson. She's being interrogated by the Batarians so that they can put a stop to her plans, but she refuses to cooperate and shouts warnings about the Reapers. Put a pin in that. You then travel together to her base on an asteroid, and en route she explains that she is part of a project cleverly titled The Project. They have learned that Reapers will be arriving in this solar system in just over 2 days, at which point they will invade the galaxy via the system's mass relay. To prevent this, Kenson and her group have set up thrusters on an asteroid so it can launch itself into the mass relay and destroy it. Put a pin in that. They know that the Reapers are arriving soon because of a vision and a pattern of signals originating from a Reaper artifact they've started calling Object Rho. Shepard mentions how Reaper artifacts are dangerous, and Kenson assures them that they've been very safe about it. Put a pin in that. Once you reach the base, you end up face to face with Object Rho. It zaps your brain, and Kenson reveals that she's indoctrinated. In fact, literally everybody here is. And now they're trying to kill you, because they can't let you destroy the relay and stop the Reapers. Indoctrination takes time, and the logs you find around the base confirm that Kenson and the rest have been indoctrinated for a while now, so that causes a ton of plot holes. Second pin. If she's indoctrinated, why was she completely honest with you about the one thing you could do to stop the Reaper invasion? And if the main thing she cares about at this point is kidnapping Shepard, why not just create a lie to get them to the base? First pin. Even if she felt the only way to get Shepard back to the project base was total honesty, why did she tell the Batarian interrogator about the Reapers instead of just giving him the location of the base? There would be no better way to guarantee that the project is stopped than to get the Batarians to swoop in and put it down. Third pin. Why did they take absolutely zero precautions against indoctrination? They just leave this massive, mysterious Reaper artifact out in the open. The fact that you can ask about it makes it clear that this is an obvious thing to consider. Why didn't they? And then Kenson lies to you and says that they did take precautions. Why is that the only thing she lies about? Why is the indoctrinated Amanda Kenson entirely honest about the Reaper's plans and the way to stop them, but then lying about specifically this? This entire DLC presents indoctrination as if it's something that turns on and off. She goes between doubting the project, telling you all about it, and completely insane trying to stop you. This is never how indoctrination has worked in the series. Indoctrination is a long, subtle process where the person's goals shift to support the Reapers. It makes them believe in a faulty logic that leads to them doing actions that help the Reapers. And while yes, it will eventually turn people into insane Reaper cultists, the first game hammers home that they can't go back to acting normal once they're at that point. And don't even try to say that she is resisting indoctrination and finally succumbs in this scene. Benezia was a nearly millennium-old, incredibly powerful Asari matriarch who could push away indoctrination for only a few minutes, indoctrination that goes so against her true desires that it makes her try to kill her own daughter. So there is absolutely no way that this random Alliance doctor can push it away for the hours she spends with Shepard and the days she spends in a Batarian prison camp being tortured. Alright, moving on to another plot hole. Once she's revealed to be indoctrinated, why does Shepard still believe everything she had been saying up to that point? Destroying the relay will wipe out the entire system in a supernova-level explosion, but you don't even hesitate to do it. Why is Shepard so incredibly determined to kill hundreds of thousands based on information that an indoctrinated person got from a Reaper artifact? Do they just want to kill the Batarians regardless? Cause if so, fair. You know what wouldn't have condemned 305,000 people to death? Hitting that like and subscribe button. Look at this graph. Only 5.6% subscribed. You guys are... You're killing me here, guys. I got a lot of Mass Effect content as well as plenty of other topics. I got stuff for everybody. Anyways, back to the video. I will give them credit for this though. We as an audience know the Reapers are actually about to arrive because if you let the time until arrival run out, you get a critical mission failure with an admittedly cool cutscene of the Reapers invading. I will totally admit that this is a super cool touch, a genuinely unnerving cutscene that you'll really only see if you actively wait out the timer. They really didn't have to put this in, so it's cool that they did. Anyways, where were we? Oh right, it's revealed that they're indoctrinated and you're stuck in a supposed to lose fight, where if you survive the waves of enemies, Object Rho just knocks you out anyways. I think these sorts of objective survive set pieces are good if they're done well, and this one is okay. It does some things well and some things poorly, but no matter what, it ends the same way. Shepard then wakes up a couple days later with only a few hours left before the Reapers arrive. Why do they wake up? The sedatives just stop working for no reason. The scientist who is watching over you then seals you in the room with a force field. It makes sense to have the ability to seal off the medbay from the outside like this, especially if indoctrination is a risk. Congratulations guys, you successfully took one precaution. What doesn't make sense is that this sealed off area has a control panel for the security mechs. This is how you escape. You take control of an armed mech and shoot your way to the power junction and blow it up. This is just so absurdly stupid. Under what possible circumstances would you want the controls for your security mechs inside the medbay at all, let alone one designed to be locked down? It can't even be used as some bizarre defense system because the force field is controlled from the outside. And no, you do not perform some remote hack to control the mechs from inside. It's literally the armed security mech control console. Anyways, from this point, it's just mainly a matter of shooting your way through a bunch of goons who are human, and overall it's pretty solid. The area itself is actually pretty distinct, with an aesthetic that overall fits with Mass Effect 3 more than it does 2, which works well for something meant to bridge the two games. You then make a fake choice that does nothing and set the asteroid onto its collision course with the mass relay. Kenson then rings you up and says that she can only stop you by overloading the core and blowing the whole thing up with both of you on it. So you go to stop her and get this really stupid dialogue.
I will die, never having seen the Reaper's blessings, and you will just die.
Ugh. Anyways, once you've managed to prevent the meltdown, then she says,
You've done nothing, Shepard. I can still override power to the engines.
But then you get down to her and she's apparently changed her mind because rather than overriding the engine, she just blows herself up. So I guess she actually couldn't just do that. What was the point of that dialogue? You are then knocked out again and wake up with less than 30 minutes until the Reapers arrive. At this point, the asteroid is about to impact the relay, and it's way too late for any Materians to evacuate, so you just have to focus on escaping. You try to contact the Normandy, but the communication system is damaged. Why you need to use the base's communication system instead of just directly radioing it yourself like you do in every other mission in the series is not explained. Shepard decides to take a shuttle instead and makes their way to the exterior of the asteroid. This is a cool set piece, and it utilizes the low gravity rather well. Once the last shuttle leaves, Shepard changes their mind again, and you go to fix the comm tower and contact the Normandy. I like how Shepard's plan was to leave their crew to die, and the backup is to contact them. Once you radio them, you then have an absurdly brief dialogue with Harbinger that's basically just a worse copy of the absolutely phenomenal encounter with Sovereign on Vermeer. The Normandy then picks you up, and you get a genuinely really good closing cutscene, even if it does make it painfully obvious that they didn't get Seth Green back for this.
Commander Shepard, Normandy inbound for pickup.
Roger that. Get us out of here, Joker.
The way the mass relay seems to almost desperately try to warp the meteor away just works really well, the explosion looks great, the somber scene of Shepard watching the casualties rack up really hits you, it's just an overall really good cutscene. I honestly think this cutscene alone is why Arrival is overrated, or at least underhated. It ends on such a well done somber note that you walk away satisfied, as long as you don't think about anything that preceded that ending. You also get this cool wrap-up with Hackett that segues directly into the start of Mass Effect 3. However, I don't intend to let Arrival end on a high note here. We're not done! There's one more huge plot hole that is entwined throughout the entire DLC, and I feel like it's the most egregious one. So far, all the other plot holes have been about characters confined to this DLC, none of whom survive to the end. But this plot hole leads to conclusions that reflect poorly on all the actually well-written characters from the base game. It is a plot hole that takes the form of a question with no logical answer. What was the Normandy doing? I didn't bring this up before because you need to look at the whole picture of the DLC to see how it doesn't all add up. So let's rewind to the very start. The very first thing you do is step off of a shuttle. one that leaves as soon as you're on the ground. From this we know a couple things. We know that Normandy is near the planet Aratot, because in Mass Effect 2, shuttles do not have any special stealth capabilities. The concept of a stealth shuttle is introduced in Mass Effect 3. This means that for this stealth mission, you absolutely used the Normandy, the stealthiest ship in the galaxy, as much as you possibly could. Second, we know that at the very least, Joker, EDI, and Cerberus know where Shepard is. Joker flew the Normandy to Aratot, EDI is the Normandy, and Cerberus would absolutely have a way to track everywhere the shuttle went, especially one that then returned to the ship after dropping off Shepard. Whether it's a VI flying it or an unseen pilot, doesn't matter. Some people have the misconception that this mission is some sort of black op that would need to be kept secret from your squad, but there's nothing to indicate that that is the case. The reason you go in alone is not because your squad mates cannot know what you're doing. You go in alone because
Kenson is my friend. If the Batarians see a squad of armed soldiers, they'll kill her.
So considering that there's no reason to keep it a secret from your squad, it's safe to assume that they know as well. Or at the very least they could ask and get an honest answer. So now that we've gone over your trip to Aratot, let's fast forward to your trip from Aratot to the asteroid. Here's where things get really messy, as there's something the game does not make clear. Does Shepard tell anybody where they're going? They don't contact the Normandy in the cutscene, and while they could theoretically do it off screen, there's nothing to indicate that that's the case, especially since they get sedated for 2 days and nobody goes to rescue them. So we can probably conclude that they just didn't contact anybody after leaving Aratot. But why didn't they tell anybody? The only reason they operated alone was to reduce the risk of Kenson getting executed. But now she's safe. There is absolutely no need for discretion from this point on. There is literally nothing stopping Shepard from calling in the cavalry. This could all be chalked up to Shepard just being a colossal fucking moron, if not for how the DLC ends. Remember how I said you contact the Normandy from a radio tower on the exterior of the asteroid? It arrives to pick you up just barely over a minute after you contact it. It is there immediately. Travel within systems takes time. The only way it could pick you up so quickly is if it was already waiting nearby, and if you didn't contact it to tell it where you're going, why is it here? And you might argue, well, obviously they weren't going to hang out by the Batarian colony planet. They dropped Shepard off, then flew away and waited for further instructions. To which I respond, if you're looking for a place to lay low, within 1 minute of a mass relay is pretty much the worst possible option. That is the place that will see the most ship traffic in the entire solar system. There are only 2 reasons for the Normandy to be here. Either Shepard told people that they are going to an asteroid near the mass relay, or they gave up on Shepard and were going to leave the system and abandon them. This is why this is the most egregious plot hole. Because if Shepard did tell the crew where they were going, then they did not rescue you after days of sudden inexplicable radio silence. If Shepard did not tell the crew, then they were ready to abandon you in a doomed system. I could maybe forgive a DLC where all the characters unique to it are dumb assholes, but I sure as hell can't forgive it for turning Mass Effect 2's cast of great characters into a bunch of dumb assholes. It's really a shame. I'd say overall the series has very, very strong DLC. And it's great that it's now all included in the base experience. I'm tempted to do a video about the top 5 DLC of the series. If that interests you, let me know in the comments. If there's enough support for it, I just might make it. Once again, thank you to all my patrons, and shout out to Audie T, Amy Lech, Eho, Little Dude 901, and Samuel Wagner.